Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Seeds Alum Corner and Happy New Year. Today, we are going to be talking to Malina Loeher. She is a grad student at Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Hi, Virginia. Thank you for joining us.
Hey,
So, I wanted to get a little bit about your experience with seeds. So, how did you first get involved?
I heard about our local seeds chapter through a friend of a friend. I was doing a summer research course at the Bodega Marine Lab, and one of my classmates said to all of us interested in ecology and toxicology, "Hey, you should join seeds." And all of us said, "What seeds?" And we just started showing up at seeds chapters. So that was our Davis Seeds chapter, and it was great. I was a part of it for only a year, my senior year of undergrad, but in that year I went on a regional field trip. I went on tons of like close to home field trips organized by classmates and our chapter leadership, and it was great. I really wish I'd joined sooner.
Oh, that's so fun. Which original field trip did you go to?
That was the Bay, we called it the Bay Seeds trip for the San Francisco Bay in 2015, I think. That sounds like it's too long ago, but it was that long ago.
I totally understand. So, how was your involvement in Seeds important to your career and personal development?
Seeds was Seeds was great because I knew that I was interested in ecology and conservation and biology. But Seeds helped me find people that had similar interests. I think it can feel really isolating when you know what you're interested in academically, but you don't have any peers that you can like chat about it casually over pizza or like nerd out about randomly in your personal life. And like obviously you want some work life separation, but you also need people to support you and like
Exactly.
work with you along the way. And Seeds gave me some of my closest friends now, which is wonderful. Some of them are colleagues. One of them just finished his PhD, and I gave a disease ecology lecture in his undergraduate class, which is absolutely wild. um,
That's so
I
amazing.
It
I mean,
was
the
super fun. Yeah,
networking you do, and then now you're, like lecturing in each other's labs. That's amazing.
yeah. It's been really fun to kind of like reflect on how those individual relationships have gone. I think when I was an undergrad, though, I think like one of the most important things Seeds gave me was a better understanding of some of my STEM peers' backgrounds. We went on a couple field trips from the Davis area to Lake Tahoe and I think it's called the Desolation Wilderness, but the like wilder areas around Tahoe. And we organized these big camping. Well, I didn't do any of the organizing, but our leadership did a lot of the organizing, and it was really fun camping with that group because I grew up camping. I grew up like always playing around in the outdoors, and I had parents that like taught me how to camp and like do basic like trail preparation and safety and stuff like that. And I didn't know that that wasn't common knowledge. That like I, it it made me more aware of a lot of my own privileges, and also made me think more about um, how like it was a student group, how you can help your peers kind of along the way if you just put in a little bit of thought into organizing and bringing people along. So I think that's probably the more important part of what Seeds has given me, even though it hasn't been quite as tangible as like networking connections.
Yeah, I mean, even that, just going on field trips, going on having the opportunity to interact with others that might not have the same experience as you, is still like it broadens your perspective, and it's definitely great. So, could you tell us a little bit about your research and what are you up to now?
Definitely. So I'm a second year grad student. I'm interested in disease ecology and evolution. before I came back to grad school, I was a technician in California with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the UC Davis Bodega Marine Lab, and I worked really closely with oyster farmers and abalone farmers in California, and my job was all about like learning about the diseases that affected California's shellfish, and specifically like cultured shellfish, and that got me really interested in thinking about how to support sustainable aquaculture as an industry moving forward. And that's kind of where I want to go in the long run, even though I'm kind of like not really sure what that looks like maybe 5 years from now. Like I want to continue to support sustainable aquaculture and do so through developing robust disease management programs. And so I don't have the skill set to do that right now, but right now what I'm learning about is sort of like disease ecology, or sorry, disease evolution in aquaculture environments. And my work specifically focuses on a virus called infectious hematopoietic necrosis virus, which is just terrible. You shouldn't. Yeah, it's super tasty. It rots the liver and kidneys of trout and salmon, and it produces sort of like a few key clinical disease signs, but basically like just widespread disease of fish that causes it to, and it's like the single most challenging threat for trout farmers in the U.S. to overcome right now. Trout farming is a really quickly growing industry, particularly in the U.S., but it's sort of like it's hampered by this disease issue.
And it's mostly like the aquaculture. It shows up in mostly the aquaculture like facilities. So is it something that you also see in the wild?
That is a really good question. We know that it happens in the wild because it's an endemic disease. This virus is native to the Pacific Northwest, where a lot of Pacific salmon and like trout and steelhead species are native to. So it's something that co-evolved with the fish. We hypothesize, we theorize, but the thing that is really interesting to me is that this virus seems to have co-evolved with wild salmon, but made a host jump to farmed trout, and not through any like, I mean, biosecurity has tried to keep up as best it can, but I think it was pretty much inevitable that this native disease would follow native fish into farmed environments. And since making a host jump from salmon to trout, this virus has also made a temperature adaptation. It used to only really be at 10 degrees Celsius, and now it seems to thrive at 15 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature that pretty much all trout are grown in. The densest part of trout aquaculture in the US is in Idaho, sort of the Hagerman Valley region and connecting watersheds. And in the same area over the last some 50 years, we think, this virus has rapidly diversified genetically and sort of spread out from there. So we used to see like, if you could see everything through time, you would see just a few old strains in salmon, and maybe it caused some disease here and there. It's hard to say because we don't have the data for that. But now that it's in this farmed environment, it seems to be affected by a different set of evolutionary drivers since it's in an aquaculture environment. And that's kind of nice in some ways because we can kind of manipulate those more easily. But so far, disease managers have had a really hard time getting a handle on how to control for it because this virus seems to be diversifying and adapting so quickly. And like in the span of one fish lifetime, you could have hundreds or thousands or more generations of virus, and it only takes a couple weeks for a fish to die of this virus. So if you get the wrong set of environmental factors and the wrong strain of virus with the right host species, like that could be a farmer's entire like fish crop pretty quickly, and they like their businesses, they can't really afford to deal with that. So my work tries to understand what those drivers are and give empirical data to models that can, I'm hesitant to say predict, but at least understand the directions that viruses are evolving so that managers can kind of proactively do things to anticipate what a virus will do. And it's the best and the worst time to be studying disease evolution and virus host jumps right now.
The most
But
important right now. I mean, we see what a virus can do, and especially seeing it in a controlled environment like you are, I can see the benefits of seeing how the virus interacts with the host, how it could potentially also affect wild populations, especially in terms of like climate change and rising sea temperatures, and seeing if this viruses will thrive at different temperatures. As you said, it's scary, but it's definitely necessary. That's fascinating work, Malina. That's
thanks.
super
I
exciting.
I love thinking about the wild aspects of this too. I don't in the current program and system that we have, like that's not really something that I can study, but like that's sort of a, a big question mark for this whole host pathogen system. Like, is this similar to what happens in the wild? Like, we don't know. Like these fish, once they're infected, they die, and like I don't know if you've ever seen a fish rot in a tank, but it's real gross. It
Yeah.
also happens pretty fast. So there's not a good way to like see if there, some dead fish in the Pacific Ocean. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, no, I mean that's is really, really great, fascinating work. And especially with now, I mean, you know, um, that's great. So now that where do you see yourself going in your career after you finish graduate school?
That's a good question. VIMS, the program that I'm in, has a pretty good track record of preparing its students for science policy careers or working in government agencies. And we're also very conveniently located both to the state capital, Richmond, and the federal capital, DC. So I'm interested in science policy and getting having more evidence-based legislation.
Yeah.
But as I'm learning, it's really hard to pinpoint the most effective places in the policymaking process to insert more stuff because it's already such a slow and complicated process as is. I don't know if that's what I'm really interested in doing, but I have really enjoyed every position that I've held where I've gotten to work with both academic researchers and management agencies like people like the Fish and Wildlife Service or NOAA and USGS. I think I could see myself maybe immediately after graduation trying to find a fellowship that got me some policy experience or at least a little bit more familiarity with what kinds of science can aid the process.
Of course.
And then in the long term, maybe bringing that back to a nonprofit or maybe like state level agency and seeing where I can help support aquaculture and disease management programs in
Food
at like a
security. I mean, protein security. That's amazing. That's really great work. Um, so, could you give us one piece of advice you would give a seat student?
yeah, I think I think the best advice that I've gotten so far and that I will pass along is just to say yes to things that you're interested in, even if you're kind of like not sure, like maybe you're in engineering and somebody's like, hey, like come do this internship with free room and board to like study dolphins. You're like, that sounds great, but it has nothing to do with engineering. Like, doesn't matter. Like, go do it. I would say like it goes hand in hand with another piece of advice that I've heard to just not sell yourself short. Academia is notorious for taking advantage of early career scientists and inexperienced workers and grabbing valuable work and labor without fair compensation. So I would say like depending on what your situation is, like if you can afford to get experience for free, that's great, do it. But if you can't, like that's I think the majority of us, and you should make sure that your basic needs are met first. Doesn't have to be like flamboyant or like super over the top, but just make sure that you're taking care of yourself financially and you have like what resources are available to you, and then go do everything that you want, even if you're not sure if it'll make it onto your official CV later.
Yeah, and that is actually, you bring up a very important point about work and labor, that it's not compensated. And I feel now that a lot of academic societies are making the effort to give more paid internships or paid experiences, just because science has been, or notoriously been, very selected to the elite or the people that could afford it. While now, while trying to diversify, they're giving paid experiences to everyone, and that is great. um, so it was a really great point that you bring up. And
Thanks.
thank you so much for having us today. And I look forward, and we all look forward to seeing more about your work.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm happy to chat anytime.
Until next time.